Think about this. People who are doers, they do. They just do. They
Right.
get in the business of doing. While everyone is waiting on the island, how we're going to get off, what are we going to do? Someone build a ship, what we're going to. The doer is doing it. It's building the little shack. It's getting work, building the boat to get off. The doer is doing. Talkers are usually still. They just usually they're just simply getting it out through their verbal. So that's what I've learned a long time ago is that when doers do it, they'll give you their commitment and they go into action because the action does speak a whole lot louder than the words.
I'd like to welcome to the show Linda Clements. How you doing, Linda?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk to you. I've never spoken to a body language expert before, and it's something that's so important to us because we all interact with human beings on a daily basis. And I don't know if you know this or not, Linda, but not everything that we say is what we really feel. I don't know if you know this or not.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Alex, it's so funny because we could say one thing, but our body will scream out something else. It's kind of like when you're growing up, your mother would ask you to do something and you may comply with it, but if you give the frown on your face or change your tone or your body language turns away, your mother would look at you and said, you better act like you want to do this. So it is so true. It doesn't matter what we say. Our nonverbal is actually will get in the way. And one of
Absolutely.
my favorite quotes, Alex, is by Emerson. And I use this all the time when I'm sharing on the subject. And I'm going to clementize it a little bit. And it goes like this: I cannot hear what you are saying because who you are being is getting in the way.
Oh, such a great quote.
Oh, and I'm thinking, gosh, and I said, we've heard the phrase action speaks louder than words. And if my late granny was alive, she would say, honey, I hear you talking, but I don't see you walking. So it's so critical that, our words and our tone and our nonverbal are congruent. So yeah, it's our first language.
It's so interesting too, because coming from Hollywood, as you can imagine, the amount of people who love to talk, and they don't do it. From my, working in the business for almost 30 years, I, the people who don't talk that much are I found to be the ones who do a hell of a lot more than the people who talk a whole lot, generally don't have a lot of stuff going on, and they're trying to pretend that they're much bigger than they are, which is, I'm going to assume, most of Hollywood. And then there's the occasional people who could literally do pick up a phone and do things, get things done. And then within 6 months, you're rocking and rolling, where other people are like, oh yeah, I'm over here. I'm talking to Steven Spielberg. I'm talking this and that. And then you call up, somebody who knows Steven Spielberg, and you're like, is this person working with Steven? Steven's never heard of this guy, man. I don't know what he's talking about. So it's so funny how that is. How, in your experience, I mean, as they say, quiet waters run deep. Is
Mm-hmm.
that your experience?
Absolutely. Think about this. People who are doers, they do. They just do. They
Right.
get in the business of doing. While everyone is waiting on the island, how we're going to get off, what are we going to do? Someone build a ship, what we're going to. The doer is doing it. It's building the little shack. It's getting work, building the boat to get off. The doer is doing. Talkers are usually still. They just usually they're just simply getting it out through their verbal. So that's what I've learned a long time ago is that when doers do it, they'll give you their commitment and they go into action because the action does speak a whole lot louder than the words. Others like to hear themselves talk. So those particular people, like we're talking about in Hollywood, they could be auditory communicators. And auditory communicators, they love to hear themselves talk. And thinking about Hollywood, when I look at some of the greatest actors and actresses, and I believe Mel Streep, one of the most nominated actresses, I believe, in history,
I think the most nominated actress.
the most nominated. And Alex, when you look at her, I think when she did the role playing Margaret Thatcher, I thought I was looking at Margaret Thatcher. She gets into that role, and but what would think about this? What it would look like if we're going to the movies? So let's say, hey, Alice, we're going to have a movie day, and we're going to the movies, and all we see is the actors just reading the lines or just going over their lines without doing anything, no emotion, nothing, just the words. We're not paying for that. We're paying for stop, stop. You had me at hello. We're paying for all of that. The movements. Oh, did you see the way he looked at her? Did you see she just came back? Oh my gosh, she just realized that's her long lost husband. We're looking for those movements so that we can flow with it. And it's so important. It is so important.
So tell me, how did you get involved in this kind of this business, this work that you do?
Thank you so much. You know, I got to tell you, I was country before country was cool. So I've been doing this a long, long time, well over 40 years. And I have the opportunity. I'm trained in analytical interviewing, which is a nice word for interrogation. It's like statement analysis. And what's so interesting, I was in a boot camp in the mountains, 80 hours, Yosemite Mountains, right? I'm saying that right. 80 hours in the mountains. There were retired ATFs, FBI, CIA agents doing a boot camp for military personnel. You know, well, I didn't have a military background. Yeah, I was in ROTC when I was in high school, ranked very high, but I was in sales all of my life. I was a top sales producer. And I'm thinking, I'm already a superstar in sales, Alex. I'm thinking I want to take this thing to the next level. I want to learn what they're talking about and what they do when they do interrogation, what CIA does, what the Russians do. I want to learn the behavior science. And it was the most eye-opening experience for me. So one of my greatest ahas not too long ago, it was, of course, during the situation with the George Floyd situation, and you had all commentators giving their feedback and different body language, well, different analysis were coming on. Well, one body language expert, well, no, FBI agent, bestseller, New York Times bestseller book, Joe Navarro, you know, bestseller. And he recommended me when the media called him. And I'm thinking, I've never met him. I've got all his books, Alex, everything he's got. I know what other body language experts out there are doing. And he told the producer that Miss Clemens is far more the best expert now. Is it, Alex? Is it or was it because I'm a woman of color based on the situation? I don't know. Or perhaps he saw my work. Otherwise, he would have never recommended me. So you never know who's watching you. But the way I do it, and I did something for Mind Valley not too long ago, body language for dating. But the way I do it is a little bit different than most body language experts out there. I get into one accord and sync with the presence of the individual. I'm 100% present in their presence. So to the point that I'm picking up the cadence to your breathing pattern. So the next thing you know, our hearts are just in sync, you know? And so as I build that rapport with that individual, then I begin to ask a series of questions, first level questions, which simply gives you the facts on the response. Hey, what is your name? My name is Alex Ferrari. Okay, where do you live? I live in, Texas. So those are facts. That doesn't mean, oh, Alex is lying. Then I begin to do second level where I begin to peel the onion of the question to get the feeling. And then the highest level, third level, which gives the emotional reason why you're saying what you're saying. So I take the time to do it, really get to know the person so that I can watch those micro expressions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alex, have you ever been in a room with someone and they're talking about someone? You're not saying, but just been in a room in a meeting and someone saying, you know what? I just hope he does something else with the project and blah, blah, blah. He's not the best person for the job or she's not the best person. And they thought the person was gone. They thought they left the building with Elvis. The next thing you know, the guy or the woman, or they come back into the door, the person that said it, immediately they freeze. They freeze. That's why people walk in a room. You ever walk in a room that you ever feel it? Were they talking about me? You ever walk in that room and all of a sudden, Alex, everybody gets quiet and you go, what? What? Were y'all talking about me? And so our amygdala, the part of our brain, which is our truth brain, doesn't lie. And the moment that stimuli or someone asks you a question and you decide to maybe give an alternative answer, that's a nice way to say lie, right? If you give an alternative answer, it doesn't matter what you say. Your body's going to get in the way and tell the truth. So,
it's funny. It's funny because even going back into like high school when you're sitting around with a bunch of guys or gals and they're like, "Oh, do you like Bobby?" And the girl's like, "No, I hate Bobby," but you could see in their face that they was like, "What are you what?" Like the second we said the word Bobby, you lit up, and it's like they can't stop it. You're a sociopath if you can stop it. Essentially, that's the sociopaths have that ability.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. That's why I say to people all the time, unless you're a sociopath or psychopath, and they do have that ability because that's how they think. Their brain truly believes it. That's why everything's congruent. But you're right. I don't like, I don't, look at my face. I don't like Bobby.
Done.
And you're laughing at the same time. So you're going like, I don't like, and that laugh, really?
Nervous laugh, of course. So can you tell me about what communication theory is?
Okay, so let's talk. The communication theory was a study done by Dr. Maharabian out of UCLA well over 50 years ago. And it was based on an intimate interaction, one-on-one, about 100 people that were in groups, small groups, and how we respond emotionally and non-verbally. And with that study, he discovered, and of course, you always have people that come along later on, other experts that says, oh, we dispute the study, but they haven't done a study, right? So, but he said in that study that our words are 7% of our communication. So Alex, think about this, 7% are the words that are coming out of our mouth. Mm-hmm. Are they powerless, or powerful, passionate or passive, poison or potent are words. And once the words are out, we can't retrieve them. So just think if you said something and perhaps, we've all done it before. We made a mistake, didn't have the right data, and we say something and we're wrong. And you see the look on the individual's face. We got 43 muscles in our face. And so you can imagine with that expression that comes when you hurt someone. But once the words are out, we can't retrieve them back. 7%. Every, actor in Hollywood, they have to make sure they've got the right words that are on the script and the words come across. In the study, 38% of our communication is our tonality. It's the saying that goes. It's not what you say, but how you say it. But I'm going to do a remix on that. It's not just what you say and how you say it. It's what they hear. So it goes back. So, for example, if the spouse is trying to talk to the wife and she's trying to be mad or whatever, she goes, stop, look at me, stop. So the shoulders is going one thing, but the voice is saying, stop. So the tone is sending a different message. Tone's sending a different message, and the tilt of the head. So 38%. And in a workshop that I do, sales hypnotherapy, is just using the words and knowing when to use pregnant pauses. If I'm talking to your audience and I say to them, listen, Alex, Steve, Linda, Brenda, Kevin, everyone that out there, if you don't hear anything else that I'm sharing with you, I need you to hear this. You can hear it in the silence. So knowing when and how to use the tone. If I said to you, hey, Alex, I saw Steve and Sandy at the mall the other day and they were alone. Okay, Linda, big deal. People go to the mall all the time. But what if I did this? I saw Steve and Sandy at the mall the other day and they were alone. Same words, different tone. 7% words, 38% tonality. And Alex, 55% of our communication in the communication theory is nonverbal. So if you add the 55 and the 38, wow, 93%. So it's critical. It's how you show up that actually leaves a lasting impression.
It's there's a comedian who I think it was funny. So he did a little bit about something like this. He said about there was the same words, like a girl was like, a guy was with his wife or something like that. And it's like, and she's like, no, stop it. Oh my God, stop it. Right. And then she's like, now imagine if a court reporter said, Your Honor, she said, stop it. Oh my God, stop it. You're bad. She didn't say it that way. She didn't say it that way. But you see the difference just by how it was and how it was put out. But the other thing is interesting too, is you said something as to how it's received. Most fights that happen inside, or arguments or disagreements that happen in life, but especially in a marriage or in a romantic relationship, it's all about how the intention is not always received. It's so critical, because like you'd say something and then your wife would get angry. I'm like, because guys aren't sophisticated. We're blunt objects. Let's just put it straight. We're blunt objects. So when we say something in a disagreement, we generally mean what we say.
Right.
Generally, because we're, again, not sophisticated animals, but then the way,
Point, right?
yeah, exactly. But the way the other person receives that, and then the guy will get like, what? I didn't. No, it's not about taking the garbage out. What do you mean? It's like, no, it's so much more. I'm like, no, but the garbage out. No, it's not how you said it. And it's just so fast. So most arguments, most disagreements, I would argue most pain in communication that we have as human beings is misunderstanding intention. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, that is a fair statement. And of course, the emotional state we are in when we deliver the message. How many times, let's just talk about this. You ever received a text message, and if you are kinesthetic or amiable, and then you're going to pick up the phone, excuse me, what did you mean by that? I don't like the tone. But whose tone? Is it that it's not that they've used all caps, it's perhaps how you perceived it. So can you imagine if it happens in the written word, can you only imagine what happens when we're talking to somebody or where we suspect someone of something? If I were you, I wouldn't do that. If I were you, I wouldn't do that. See, it just all how we deliver that. So how powerful that can be, Alex, how powerful that could be in just communicating with our children,
right,
with our loved ones, with your wonderful audience, with your director, if you're an entrepreneur, with your team, if you're building a company. It is very critical. Sometimes we have to think before we launch. And my grandmother would say, before you launch that tongue, you have to think.
Well, let me ask you though, in today's world, there's so much more communication, especially the younger generations coming up through texting. Texting is I find it a horrible way to communicate because there's no tone. You can maybe put an emoji in there and they help. Trust me, because if you say something, and I've caught myself doing this, I texting something and I think, they better know I'm joking. Let me put a happy ha 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 face or something. Because if not, it all depends on how it's received from the other end. There's Key and Peele, the comedy team from they did an entire skit about two guy friends texting each other. One was getting angrier and angrier, and the other one was just getting more and more relaxed. He's like, do you want me to come over there right now? He's like, yeah, man, come over right now. Like, I can't stand this anymore. I know this is horrible. Like, it was just, it's hilarious. But again, there's miscommunication and by the way, miscommunication is one of the cores of good comedy.
Right.
Good comedy is miscommunication.
Miscommunication. I love it. I love it. But that is so true. And then someone would say, well, I thought you meant. Well, that's not what I said. Well, I thought you meant. It's what you hear and how you interpret it. So, and that's why it's so important. It's strange that you mentioned about the texting. I did a training session earlier this year because, during the pandemic, there were a lot of college kids that were finishing up their last 2 years, 4 years of college, the last 2 years during the pandemic. And of course, not having that connection. So they brought me in to be able to help these college kids with their interviews because their interpersonal skills was just like this. And it was very difficult for them to look and communicate without automatically looking down. And so just to get them in those interviews, I mean, they look good on paper, the grades and their work that they've done, but their interpersonal skills were not great at all because that time locked up. And so it's very, very critical, that as great communicators, you want to make sure it's not always about us. I think it was Stephen Covey that once said, begin with the end in mind. So how do you want the person to feel when they leave your presence?
Right.
How do you want them to feel? Alex, do you want, just imagine, like if someone right now who is listening to your show, they could have been just having a bad day. They woke up, the coffee was flat, that, coffee was cold and the tire was flat. They found out the dog needed braces. Everything is happening, right? And then all of a sudden they turn on your show and then their mood is transformed. And so that's what I tell everyone. And especially when I'm dealing with executives, C-suite, there's a silent language of leaders. People are not going to hear what you say. They're going to actually hear what you do and watch what you do. That's what they believe, because your actions are overriding everything. But it is so important that every time someone leaves your presence, and this is what I believe, they should leave better than when they approached you. They should leave better. And for those of you who are out there wanting to be people magnets and increase your interpersonal skills, your dating skills, or whatever, you want to be around people that elevate you and make you feel good.
Oh no, there's no question. I mean, we all have those friends that bring us down. We're like, well, we did. I mean, as I gotten older, I've let go of those friends because I was just like, I'm too old for this, expletive. I just can't take this anymore. I'm just getting too old for this stuff. But I wanted to ask you though, from your perspective, I think the whole interpersonal communication, being able to talk to another human being, unfortunately, I feel it's becoming more and more generational. Where your generation, my generation, we had no other choice. We got on the phone and spoke. We got into person and talked. We played out in the streets, this and that. And nowadays, and maybe I sound like an old fogey talking like this now, but nowadays the younger generation is all about the texting. It's like they're even scared to have so in their dating life, they're just like, I've seen shows about this that they just don't know how to talk, but they like literally text each other. They text each other, like they have no understanding on how, and they have no skills on cues, physical cues, microaggressions, micro cues. They have no understanding of that. And even if I haven't been trained in that like you have, but I could pick up a couple things. I mean, I'm in the communications business for 20, 30 years. I've worked with a lot of people as a director on a set. You need to communicate your vision to multiple people, and you got to know when the person's just not picking up. These things you have to pick up, but that takes time to do. What do you feel about that?
Oh my gosh, Alex, you are so on the money. I'm telling you this. That I've seen. Listen, I had a friend. She did like her daughter had the sleepover. They had the girls' party, and she goes into the room, and the room was quiet. Because the girls. I mean, I know when I grew up, we were having fun and talking about the boyfriend stories.
Like Grease.
Right, just like Grease. Goes into the room, and they're all texting. They're not even talking to each other. They're just all, what was the purpose of the get together? And the other thing that drives me batty is that if you're in an office, for those that are sitting back in the office or able to come in, some are still in a hybrid, that you are emailing someone and they're sitting right next to you and they're in a cubicle right next to you. So now now we are cocooning, if you will, right? Because what's happening, we've been in for a long, long time. I don't want to go back. I don't want to be around people. They don't want to do that anymore. And they don't realize it's hurting their development. And there's something else about this our wonderful generation who are future leaders. There was a study that was done because this particular generation, the parents, if you will, they're like little caterpillars. They weren't this generation, they weren't able to like break out of the shell to get their colors. That's how a butterfly gets its colors. It has to go through the struggle. They weren't able to do that because the parents were saying, I don't want Billy to go through what I went through. I don't want Alex, Michaela to go through what I went through. And so they make it easy. So now here's what the study said. This generation, millennials and Zs, are seeking more therapy, psychiatric help than any other generation before us. It's in vogue, if you will, for them to say, I'm going to see my therapist, because you and I had to know how to get back in there and work it out. Get back in there, work it out. We had to do that. So we learned the resilience. That's why so what, the first email, or was it back in the 90s? I mean, gosh, I've been doing a networking and relationship building before Zuckerberg was even born. He didn't even have a face, let alone a Facebook.
True that.
And the old-fashioned way being building relationships, adding value, about giving more than you get. They don't do that. And I used to tell my nieces and my nephews and the young adults that I talk to, listen to me. Just because you have 5,000 friends on Facebook, that's not friends. That's social. Do you know how long it takes to get a good friend? and develop a relationship, and they don't have that. So when there's a little dramatic thing, because someone on the internet, your life is a part of that, and all of a sudden they insult you or they don't like you. Some of these people are shattered,
Completely.
It's unbelievable. And I hate to say this, suicide among that generation is high. But yeah, they're seeking more therapy than anyone else, because they're going through problems and challenges and nothing on conflict resolution. We need it in the schools, need it in the universities, nothing on, how the art of resilience. Nothing that, they don't have that.
No,
that's a soft spot for me, Alex.
I know. No, I mean, I think our parents, look, we could fairly say our parents loved us, but they were savages, and our grandparents were even more savages. I mean, the things I would hear what my grandparents did to my parents, I'm like surprised that I even survived. I come from Gen X, so it's a completely different perspective, and there was struggle. There wasn't the ease that there is today with the technology, but our generation is the bridge generation, because we knew what life was like without a remote control. And we also were there with the birth of the internet, and we know how to navigate both worlds, as opposed to like my kids who were born into this magical world where they can watch any cartoon whenever they want for days on end. And I go, gather around, children. I'm going to tell you a horror story. Back in the 80s, there was one day you get to watch cartoons, and it was Saturday morning. And if you missed it, you'd have to wait to the next Saturday. What?
And we loved the anticipation, doing your homework.
I wake up at 6 in the morning
from you. Oh my gosh. It's just like it was so funny. There was, I don't know if it was a commercial or something on one of the shows where they had some of these young adults, they were looking at the rotary phone, and they were they were looking at it. What do you do? Like, what is it?
Yeah, my kids, I walked into an antique store and I saw one of those, and my kids were like, "What's that?" I go, "That's a phone." And they're like, "What?" And I go, "That's a phone. You mean like your phone in your pocket?" I go, No, here, let me show you how it works. And then I started to dial, and their eyes were like, "What is going on?" I go, "Yeah, you would have to dial all 7. And if you screwed up on number 7, got to start up all over again. And the worst was the phone numbers with the all 9, 8, 7s, 9. It's horrible. It's like,
Alex, are we that old?
I think we are.
Are we sounding like our parents?
I think.
God, remember me?
Look, generally speaking, my show is a little old, skews a little bit older, so I think a lot of people are laughing right now, hopefully. But the kids who are listening, the struggle was real.
The struggle is real, my brother. The struggle is real.
The struggle was real. No question.
The struggle was a struggle. And this is so funny we're talking about this, because I think I was aware of body language growing up with my parents. To this day, you're looking at kids and how they're interacting with their parents. Billy, sit down, time out. My mother will give you that look that you felt death just went through your body.
I do. See, I've brought the look back for my generation.
You brought it back?
I brought it back. My children.
Let me see your look. Let me see your look.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it on. It has to have. I can't fake it. It has to come. I have to get into emotion. I'm not Meryl Streep. I can't just bring it up like that. But I'll do a look, and my kids will no. I cut right through them with my eyes, and my wife. Oh my God. This is how bad they are about cues. Because I can sense with my wife when they're getting on her nerves. And I have probably about a good 15, 20-minute head start on the kids, meaning that I can tell something's coming. It's kind of like an earthquake monitor. I'm like, this volcano is going to pop any second now. And I would tell them, I even say it out loud now, even so my wife could hear. I go, "Girls, you're about 10 minutes before something happens you don't want to happen." And they're like, no. I'm like, and I like clockwork. They do something, pops off. And the same thing goes, my wife will say it to my kids, but I'm more emotional. I express myself like that much quicker. So I have a shorter fuse, as they say. but they don't pick up. So I've been trying to teach them these little, it's funny and it's cute that we're talking like this, but these are skills that they need to learn. Like when your dad got home or grandpa got home, you could sense
Absolutely.
the moment they walked in if they had a good or bad day, just by the way they looked and things like that. Which, all right, so let's talk. We've been having some fun, but let's talk about.
And we had a good, as a matter of fact, we had a good landscape because we would watch the interaction between the parents.
Oh, yeah.
Because think about it, Alex, that's how little girls know that when mommy says, no, you can't have the cookie before dinner. Listen to mommy's tone. No, you can't have the cookie before dinner. How does a 3-year-old, 4-year-old know when daddy walks in the door to change her little tone? Hey, daddy. How does she know how to take her little hand and stroke his cheek and then goes in for the kill? She asks him for a cookie and he melts like butter. How is that? Because they've seen it demonstrated, see? And that's why it's so important, even as adults and for parents that are out there, when you can tell your children, hey, these are the, we want you to grow up to be a great kid and integrity is important. But if you don't demonstrate it,
absolutely,
man, it's gone.
No, you've got to you have to be an example. And now, by the way, when they do that, because my kids do try to do that to me. And when they do that, I'm like, ask your mother. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm like, nope. Ask your mother about that. Nope, that's not my department.
You can tell it's a trap, right, Alex? You feel a trap.
No, I'm an old dog, and I like at this point, I'm like, oh wait, the Wi-Fi's down. Got you. Oh, the iPad's not hooking up. That's Daddy's department. That other stuff. Ask your mother.
Love it, love it, love it.
So, all right. So, what are some nonverbal cues? We've been talking a lot about nonverbal cues. What are some nonverbal cues that we can pick up on when we're having a conversation with someone that we can kind of tell the words aren't matching the intention?
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. For some of you that are out there that are still doing the Zoom, because you may be having Zoom meetings, and for some of you that are in person. So let's just say, Alex gave me a great welcome onto this platform. And what if I came onto the screen and I said, Alex, I'm so excited to be here. Well, automatically the assumption, the folded arms is closed off, and, I'm closing off a power zone. When I say power zone, I'm speaking of the heart area, the throat area. This little dip here is called the suprasternal notch. As a matter of fact, Princess Di, when she felt really vulnerable, she would stroke the suprasternal notch. And at the same time, Marilyn Monroe would use it to expose the neck to be very seductive. So that's a power zone, the heart area, the belly button, the navel connection, our first connection to another human being is to the umbilical cord. When we turn away, we're cutting off the connection. And of course, the reproductive area. And we'll save that for another show. Mm-hmm. So to give you a great example here, so the arms are folded. So here's what happens with biases, prejudgment. The perception is, family, listen up, ladies and gentlemen, the perception is when you fold the arms, they're to the recipient, perceives it as being closed off. So what happens if the person judges you on that movement and they decide, you know what, I'm not going to watch the show today because this person is closed off to Alex, and you miss this piece right here. You miss this piece where I'm going like this. You saw me folded arms when you introduced me. Then all of a sudden I'm talking, going like this. And my niece brings me a scarf and says, oh my God, she must be chilly. But you missed the other movements. How often do we judge the first movement? So when I'm teaching master classes, Alex, I tell all my students, watch for more than one movement. And we call those clusters, looking for more than one movement that validates what you think. You think Linda's not in the mood? Okay, what else is she doing? Arms folded. Oh, she's turning her body away. Oh, she's looking that way. Wow, that's 3 movements that validate that. The other thing, whatever is on the mind shows up in the matter. Whatever is on the mind shows up in the matter. And it could take a millisecond. The moment that you're thinking like, oh, this person gets on my last reserve nerve. Oh, hi. You can't even switch it those micro expressions, you can't even switch back that quick, because what's happening, the brain is going to allow the facial expressions to linger, because the brain is saying, whoa, 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 this is how you really feel. I'm sending the right cues down there. And so we try to override that. Another thing that you could be aware of when you're having a communication and you walk into a meeting and it says, okay, we're going to go over the agenda today, but there's a couple things that are going on. There's a rumor going around the office. Da, 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 da. Did anybody have anything to do with it, or you know what was said? So watch this. The moment that you say that, timing is critical. Watch for the people who do lip compression. So I'll say to you, Alex, do you know anything about what's going around? I'll say, Dorinda, Steve, Michaela, do you know anything what's going around? And all of a sudden, when I get to Steve or Linda, then Linda goes like this. Not quite sure. Okay, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I'm holding it in. The brain said, girl, you know what's going on. You know exactly what's going on. I know you're trying to cover for your person, but you know what's going on. So automatically I'm trying to suppress what the amygdala is telling the truth brain. It sends the right signals. And when I see lip compression, that allows me, before I go to the next question, let's begin to peel the onion. So let me ask you this. So Linda, were you there at the meeting? It was about 12 o'clock. And I think that's when they had the discussion and this was said about this. And then all of a sudden, some other things start happening. So everybody out there that's watching, I want you to do this. Raise your hands. Come on, Alex, play with me. Raise your hands, Alex. Okay, so take your hands and put them on your thighs. Okay, put them on your thighs and start stroking your thighs. Okay, that's a pacifying gesture. You'll see this happen when people are getting nervous. Chemicals are being released from the hands. So all of a sudden they're trying to self-soothe themselves. That's a second movement. As soon as I ask you, did you hear anything? Now you're getting nervous. It's probably why I've been called to jury duty probably about 7 times. And every time the defense interviews me or the prosecutor interviews me, they send me along my way, because when they find out that I'm a behavior expert, they don't want me in there and a sales expert because I might sway the jurors. But guess what happens? Half of the body language is gone, Alex. So if you have a witness or a suspect on the stand, and then all of a sudden, were you aware of what took place on February 14th? Were you aware were you at the scene? And that person is withholding information. You're just seeing the upper carriage. You're not seeing below the waist. So what happens if they're crossing their ankles? They're holding back. That's another way of the body of biting the tongue. And timing, but you can't see that on the stand. We should have crystal clear stands so we can see the full body. And then we may not see, unless their body is really nervous, if they're doing the foot. Say, I'm bouncing my foot right now, but you can't see it. So now that nervous because they're getting close, they're getting deep. And all of a sudden I'm getting nervous. See, they're missing those nonverbal cues. So it's very, very critical. Again, whatever goes on in the mind will come out in the matter. And one more thing. For those of you that watch wonderful presentations like this and watch TED Talks, and many people have seen a TED Talk presentation. And there was a study that was done a few years ago. Some of your most successful TED Talk presenters use well over 422 hand gestures in an 18-minute span period. Speaking with their hands, exposing the palms, compared to those that didn't do too well in their numbers were well under 200 of hand gestures. Why is it when you're doing business with someone, you're talking about money and you're saying, that's the best deal that I could give you, that people feel uncomfortable because your palms are not exposed. So it's very important when you're speaking, move with purpose, family. And also when someone who is lying or being deceptive, unless they're a sociopath or a psychopath, it's very difficult for them to lie for extended period of time with the palms exposed.
That's very interesting. So that's why, Italians and Latinos like myself they just, they move their hands constantly. It's a constant movement. Even when I talk, when I talk to people, when I talk to you, like when I'm interviewing people, my hands are moving, but you don't see them because they're underneath the camera. So, but I'm always like, yeah, this or that. And you might see the camera shake a little bit because that's me moving the table. But I do. And especially if like I'm doing a presentation, I can't hold my hands in. It's like they just pop out constantly. It's a thing. I don't know
And it's
why, but it
proof
is.
of it. It gives fuel to the presentation and the passion with it. So just can you imagine when someone's excited, hey, you just won the lottery, the hands go, yay, you just did this, yay, you're getting a promotion, yay. People who are clinically depressed do not raise their hands in the air like they just don't care. They don't
That's right.
raise their hands because it changes the emotional state.
So can we talk a little bit about microaggressions? That came up a lot in some court cases that I've seen, and they always have the language expert on CNN or Fox or something like that, and they just like, you see the way they do this, and to the point where, like, I think it was one of the Supreme Court nominees that they were being brought up, they froze frames, and you could see them like angry as they're like talking, but they're split seconds, like you wouldn't notice them unless you were going frame by frame.
Absolutely.
How can we pick up on some of these microaggressions?
Okay,
Or what are microaggressions?
So there's the microaggressions, and I think what you're speaking about when they freeze the frame, Alex, are micro expressions.
Expressions, thank you.
Expressions, yes. So the micro expressions is like, for example, so someone says to you, so Michael, so what do you think about the new director? What do you think about the new producer? What do you think about da 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 da? And you go like this, watch. You watch me. He's okay. Really quickly. So that little smile was trying to come out, but it went back. And so even the twitch of the corner of the lip, all of those give signals in a split second. However, we miss it because so many of us are broadcasting rather than tuning in. So many of us bring people in our office. You're talking employee, come on in. Yeah. I got, yeah. Watch, look at my hand. It's the end of the freaking month. You've got to meet your quota. Sales numbers are back, they're slow. And then all of a sudden you've got an employee comes in, they've got a problem, one of your good people, and they want to talk to you and you don't have the time, but you're trying to pretend that you do. So here's what you do. Alex, come on in. Now, Alex, I'm going to take out the sound. I'm going to just do it on my own. Alex, look at my hand. So look at her hand. If I said, Alex, come on in, shouldn't the palms be exposed? Welcome. Come on in. But I'm doing like this. Yeah. Look at the brow. Yeah. Come on in. So here's what I did with the back of the hand. I just did dismissal to the hand. Dismissal. We don't realize because that's what you're thinking. And the body sent the right cue. You were just trying to override that. So micro expressions are those little twitches that it takes a split second. I mean, a millisecond that quick that you notice that when you say something to someone or you ask them a question or in the interview, you notice it very quickly and you have to second guess yourself. Did I just see that? Or am I feeling something? And that's the thing when you start saying, I don't know. I mean, Bailey looks good on paper. She looks good on paper, but I'm not feeling it. Something, and that's that micro expressions that you're seeing, the nuances, those little things, but they're fleeting moments and they happen very, very quickly. And if we are not tuned in, we miss them. But then you'll start seeing the broader movements from the micro expressions that the person gets more aggressive, if you will, it'll start to grow and expand. You'll see it in the hands. So when I'm looking at folded arms, for example, folded arms doesn't always mean you're closed off.
Right.
It doesn't always mean that, right? It could be a person's norm or their baseline. So in body language, who you are under normal circumstance without any stress, we call it, that's Alex's norm. That's his baseline. That's who he is. So if Alex comes in every day and does the podcast Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, for some reason you tell your wife, I'm not in it today. Friday, the same thing. You're out of baseline from the routine. Just like with the child that comes in, takes off the backpack. So when you know a person's baseline, so if folding the arms is part of your baseline when you're listening to people, and you're trying to figure out a problem, that's a good time to do it. But if the person doesn't know you, Alex, it takes 4 to 7, some say 8 seconds. I'm going to give you an extra second to make a good first impression. And the remaining time, about 20, 30 minutes, I'm trying to validate if you're the real deal. So if my initial impression of you when I meet you for the very first time, so you say to me, so yo, Clemens, tell me where you're from. What's your background? You see, okay, but how would I know that that's your norm? So I'm going to my sponsor or my director or my advocate for the company who brought me in. So when I say sponsor, you guys, I mean an advocate, okay? Who
Yeah.
brought me into the company. So who's someone who brings me in and they'll say, Linda, did you meet all the team players? Yeah, I met everyone, but I met Alex and I don't really think he likes me. Well, what make you say that? Well, when I walked in the room, he just bellowed out, so tell me about yourself, where you're from, and he folded his arms. Then she's going to say, oh, that's just Alex. Well, how the heck do I know? Who in
Mhm.
HR gives me a directory of all the cray personalities in the company? How would I know? So
Right.
it's critical that first 48 seconds. Now, what I'm looking at with folded arms, when the meeting gets heated and temperatures begin to rise, I'm looking at hand grip. I'm looking right here, Alex, the pressure. You see that if I'm
Hmm.
that's when I'm noticing that I know, okay, there's a temperature change, a temperament is about to change right here, simply for the hand grip, not just the folded arms, but how they dig in. And that's the sign. And that's the sign of anger and someone's temperament. And you want to watch that when you're in that individual's presence. So those micro movements, those micro expressions are those little bitty things that sometimes we try to suppress. Quite often they're leaked out. And by the way, that's a term in nonverbal communication called leakage. It leaks out, it oozes from you.
So we've been talking about a lot of these micro expressions and other things, nonverbal cues. Do you have any tips for people who are dating, who are trying to find a mate, a boyfriend, a girlfriend? Because dating, I've been out of the dating pool quite some time now. I can't even imagine if I had to go back into the dating pool. My wife and I both look at each other like, no, we're just going to stick around because neither of us want to go back out there. But when you're trying to you're trying to learn about a new person, introduce yourself, see if you're a match. What are some tips on dating and finding love with body language?
I got to tell you this, if it's okay for me to mention, I have a body language for dating course with Mind Valley, and it's been really, really popular. So I'm excited about that. And of course, I have about several friends who have wonderful marriages for people who they've met online because they were just focusing on, like, what do you like? What's important? And your values and that kind of thing. But when you're dating in person, here's the thing you got to remember. And everybody write this down. I guess a little thing that I came up with. It's open, the word open, like opening the door. I, like your eyes. Lean, like you're leaning in. And beaming, like there's BEAM, like there's an internal light and fire in you. So just think of this: open eye, lean, and beam. So when you're meeting someone, make sure that your power zones, your body language is open, that you're not closed off any kind of way. It's very important because at the moment that the person sees you, they want to see the expression in your face, the eyebrow flash. You ever go to a networking event, Alex, and someone invited you and you walk in the room, you don't see the person that invited you, but you're looking around, and look at my eyes, you're scanning the room. That's what you call scanning the room, but you don't see anyone that you know. And then all of a sudden you see your friend Linda. What do you do with your eyes? As soon as you see me across the room, Linda, right? That's an eyebrow flash, eyebrow flash. And by the way, the ladies out there, when you see a man that likes you, that you can tell that he likes you, number one, you'll see the eyebrow flash. And number two, he'll defy gravity. He'll lift up off his feet like Superman. Linda, he'll defy gravity. Those are tips right there. Now, here is the thing, that when you are talking, keeping the power, and this is right now for the ladies, keep the power zone open. So let's just say hands on deck. When I say hands on deck, that means your hands are on the table. Because if you're sitting there and you're meeting in a restaurant and you say, okay, so what do you like to do? Oh, that's great. And your hands on the table, but you're not expressive. So with the hands on the table, forearm, and leaning in with the tilt of the head and the motion around, and just listen and validate. So if someone says something interesting, wow, if they're good at jokes or whatever, whether they're good at jokes, men love women when they laugh at their jokes, whether they're good or not, so, but just validate. So give facial validation. It's like, wow, that's great. So people love people who are interested in them.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I've done over 1,000 interviews at this point, and And I do this all day, every day. And I've been doing it for, getting close on 8 years now. And I've had occasionally people who do not give any cues. It's like talking to a wall. And it's awkward. It's weird because you just feel like you and I are having a communication. It's a back and forth. It's a tennis match where, we're kind of a dance. But when the other person is flat-footed and the music is playing and there's nothing, and I feel like, man, I gotta keep this dance going when the other and it's hard. And sometimes, I don't know about you, when you meet somebody, I guess in an interview scenario, it might be different, but I guess in just a meeting scenario would be very similar, where the wall is up because they don't know you. So they're not going to show you who they are. And my job as an interviewer is to be able to break through that wall and make them very comfortable very quickly. If not, the conversation is stale and the audience picks up on that. And sometimes it takes a minute, sometimes it takes 20 minutes. I've had interviews that I couldn't break through the wall because it just, I've had some Oscar winners on the show that just were so media trained that I just couldn't get in. There wasn't a receptive audience on the other side. But is that a fair statement too? Have you experienced
exactly
that?
Right. Alex, was it Joaquin? Who was the guy that played the Joker?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay. He was I never forget, on David Letterman.
Oh God!
Remember that? Oh my God!
God, that was amazing. Letterman had no idea what to do. He was doing it on purpose.
Was he in character?
Yeah, he was in character. Okay. Yeah, he was in character.
Did Letterman know it though?
I don't think Letterman knew. And Letterman, I mean, Jesus, is a legendary interviewer, for God's sakes. Interviewed thousands of people. But that interview was so awkward to watch because Letterman would throw something at him and he would just like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Or no. Yeah, it was
just like, and the part, and could you, without even looking at the audience, Alex, could you just feel just through the screen how uncomfortable the audience was for David Letterman? And David Letterman's from where I'm from, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah.
He's a loser, right? So, but that's exactly true. So here's what happens when we do that. It's primitive, first of all. Now, for the initial time, in other words, when you meet someone for the very first time, your brain is trying to figure out, is this person friend or foe? Is the tiger going to eat me? That's bottom line. Is this friend or foe? That's why we build rapport. That's why you do that with your guests, to make them comfortable. You build rapport so that that instant connection can take place, because you can't go any further. They're sitting there and they're closed off in a protective mode. And of course, like you said, that was deliberate, but Letterman didn't know it. Thus, it made him feel awkward in the audience because the audience was resonating with David. And the same thing that happened with Dr. Phil when he first was on the Oprah show. He didn't test well at all. He didn't test well at all because his no nonsense, that dog ain't gonna hunt type of thing. Well, Oprah's audience, it's, the spiritual, the empowerment, this. And so when he's getting up and says, look, girl, we got to do this, they're thinking, oh my gosh, you're talking to Our Lady, like that. And he did not test well at all because his personality, if you will, did not resonate. When the numbers came out, Oprah had to come back and says, wait a minute. You guys, this is what he did for me to help me win that case. He had to be tough. Oh, we love you now. We love you now. So it's very critical that you build that instant rapport, because that person could be a trust issue. Okay. Is it their baseline? Or is there something else going on? Is there another story? You know what I mean? It's very important.
Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all of my guests. What is your definition of living a good life?
Oh, my goodness. My definition for me, because we only pass this way once, is to live my life so of giving, sharing, and caring. I believe it's so important to do your giving while you're living. That's a good life for me. And my riches come in health, because you could have all the money in the world. There are people that are chasing wealth, Alex. They're chasing the wealth. And then next thing you know, they spend all their wealth to chase health. And so I want to be prosperous in my health. I want to be prosperous in my spiritual walk and my spiritual connection that's important to me. And I also want to be healthy and happy in my relationships with friends and the people that I meet. That's for me is living a good life. I want to stand, I think it was Irma Bombeck that once said that when I stand before my maker, I want to stand empty because I used everything that you gave me. And that's what I want to do.
What is your definition of God?
My definition of God is love, spirit, and peace. It gives me a calmness when I have that spiritual connection. Because June the 4th, 1996, I was a radio personality, and Morning Drive just got off the air, and I was scheduled for a surgery. It was an outpatient surgery. Needless to say, I think it was Mother Teresa that said the best way to make God laugh is to make
Yes.
And I was scheduled to come out just a couple hours, but something happened that too much anesthesia, I end up in a coma. And I was in a coma for 7 days.
Oh my God.
My heart stopped for 60 seconds. My radio listeners were praying for me. And, the doctors told them just kind of prepare for the worst. They didn't know. And I just believe to my bottom core that there's something bigger and greater than me that said, not yet. Not yet, my child. Not yet. So I have this direct line.
Now, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Oh, yeah, they can follow me on Instagram at Linda Clemons, and Clemons is spelled Clemons. My website is myname.com, and LindaClemonsEbooks.com. So just love to hear from you. And if there was something that you got out of our conversation today, let me know. Let me know if there's something fed your mind, body, or spirit. I appreciate that.
And do you have any final messages for our audience?
Yes, one of my favorite quotes is from Benjamin Mays. There are 31,536,000 seconds in a year. You've only got a minute, 60 seconds in it. Forced upon you. You didn't seek it. You didn't choose it. Hurt if you lose it. Accountable if you abuse it. It's only a tiny little minute, but the rest of your future is in it. Spend it wisely.
Ooh, beautiful. Linda, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for the work that you do and trying to help people around the world. So I appreciate you, my dear.
I love you, man.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.